We're back, folks. 64 degrees out in the Low Country. You're listening to TalkOne Radio, Low Country's finest talk radio. 843-800-1492. On the phone right now, we have a gentleman, Dr. Buck Blodgett, who's the founder of Love Greater Than Hate. It was founded out of tragedy, a voice for resilience, love, and change. In July of 2013, Dr. Buck's 19-year-old daughter, Jessie, was sexually assaulted and strangled by a friend. Dr. Buck's response was not anger, hate, or revenge. Instead, he launched the Love is Greater Than Hate project. Dr. Blodgett, it's a pleasure to have you on, sir. Welcome to TalkOne Radio.
Well, thank you. It's great to be on TalkOne Radio with you guys. Thanks for having me and Jesse on.
Welcome, Doctor. Welcome.
Tell us more about Love Greater Than Hate. I know how it started. I can't imagine that as a parent myself, dealing with that. I gotta say, you must be a God-filled man to be able to forgive and love, not hate. Tell us about how that transition.
Well, I am, honestly. I wasn't. I was an atheist at the time we lost my daughter, and so was she. Probably not really. There's a lot more to that story, and I believe we're all on a spiritual journey, and that was the point in the path we were on at the time. But we lost Jessie 6.5 years ago. She was raped and strangled to death by a friend who planned it for a couple months. Oh, God. And hard to understand, just really hard to understand. And I hope you and all of your listeners never have to imagine what it's like. But something, a little voice deep inside my brain and my soul said immediately, that this kind of incomprehensible cruelty and disregard for another person and their future and their pain and their fear had to be met with an even more incomprehensible something, forgiveness and love. And that's where it started. And the project is my daughter's legacy. It's called the Love is Greater Than Hate project, and our dual mission is ending male-on-female violence and inspiring love over hate in this sometimes crazy world we're in.
And what's how do you do that? I mean, do you do that just by speaking to groups, speaking to young people? Do you publish a book? Do you have a blog? How do you do that, sir?
It's evolving, and we do three main things right now. I do a lot of presentations. Just did 4 in the last 3 days, one in a max security prison over on the other side of our state, one at a university in a Restorative Justice conference over on the other side of our state, one in my church. Mostly I share a presentation called A Message from Jessie. We also have a faith-based series now that's all about forgiveness and resilience. And I believe we've now spoken to 17,000 people in 6 states. We also do a lot of media outreach, radio, print media, TV, social media. Jessie's story has been turned into 4 TV documentaries, including Dateline, which have been seen and have replayed many times and been seen by tens of millions of people on 5 continents. It's just kind of mind-blowing. I've never done anything like this before.
Wow. No, I imagine
I've never had a ripple like this before, so it tells me there's more going on here than me.
Were you able to...
And, we also, the best thing we do, in my opinion, is a little local project. It's a little right now. We'll see what the future brings.
Right.
We're trying to measurably decrease domestic violence, sexual violence, dating violence, human trafficking, and bullying in Jessie's high school. And the big idea is when we get that done, however long it takes to produce measurable change, we'll then have a new model that we can share with schools everywhere.
And that would be awesome if that somehow found its way into the curriculum, right?
Yeah, that's one of the 3 main pieces of the school program is student curriculum. And staff training is important also. And then we start the program in a school with what we call initiating stories. each semester we lead the semester with a powerful personal story of by a real life victim, survivor, thriver.
Doctor, I'd just like to ask, when you go, like you said you go to prisons. What is the major feedback you get, or the feeling you get from the people you speak to that are in prison when you present your, the story and your case? Like, how would the majority feel? What would you read from them?
It's really exciting for me. We have to measure this someday too. We're not there yet. We
Sure.
have to measure change. But I just believe in the power of a powerful personal story, a real life story of overcoming. And so I've been in the prison system here in Wisconsin now, I think 27 prison presentations in the last 3 years for about well over 3,000 inmates and staff now. And we get every time all kinds of great feedback. The inmates, they're really engaged. I have so many people who say to me things like, why do you even go? Why do you even care? Let them rot in there.
Sure,
and, well, number one reason is because most of them are getting out and coming back into our communities. And they need transformation, and we need them to experience transformation. Just like, in my personal opinion, we need all of us to experience transformation. Personal growth. If we're going to achieve culture change and culture transformation and ending male and female violence, which probably half your listeners think I'm nuts and that's impossible, but I'm not nuts, and it's not impossible. And every social justice movement looked impossible when it started.
Right.
So feedback has been very exciting and really positive, and I hear stories. And one of my favorites came from Prairie du Chien Correctional last year, where an inmate who challenged me in the AMA we do after, the Ask Me Anything.
Sure.
He basically didn't believe I really forgave my daughter's killer, didn't believe I could, didn't believe I would, and told me flat out he wouldn't, and he knew he couldn't. And, I told him, hey, I didn't drive all the way across the state today to make a difference in your life, to hear you say you can't and you won't. We need you. And I go back this year and find out that prison has started its own forgiveness class, and guess which inmate is the inmate leader of that forgiveness class?
That gentleman.
See, there you go. You're touching people all throughout the state.
Wow.
And those that are incarcerated are probably the toughest bunch to reach. And
which population do we need it most? Like I said, many of them are getting out, and there's high percentages of domestic violence, sex offender, drug and alcohol, which is married with issues of violence.
Oh, yeah.
So we, if we did nothing else with our project but reached these guys, that would be huge for me.
Right. Absolutely.
I must say, Doctor, you sound like such a wonderful guy. I got to hand it to you. I'm finding it hard, I'm trying to put myself in your place, which of course I can't, but to hear you and the calmness in your voice and the way you must present this whole thing is, it's really baffling. And I wish you all the luck. I mean, it's great.
How do you talk about this deliverance from where these incarcerated people are in their lives and within their heart? What do you use as a springboard? What do you use for that? Are we just talking spiritually,
or
or
her life and her story?
Yeah.
This is always in a restorative justice setting in the prisons, and restorative justice is a new thing in the American justice system. It's kind of a new movement, and it's all about, for those who haven't heard of it, which is probably most of us, it's all about perpetrators and victims, and sometimes a larger community also communicating. So, maybe law enforcement gets involved, or maybe social services, or maybe the DA's office, or whatever, and they facilitate a communication between perpetrator and victim. And the point is basically four things. To, number one, to have the perpetrator begin to understand at a deeper level the harm they caused for others. And number two, to have them begin to, if they haven't yet, take full accountability for the harm they caused. And number 3, to make whatever reparations and healing they can bring to the victim's family, and the situation. And number 4, to stop causing harm, because sometimes the harm continues. For example, my wife, Joy, once or twice a year will be surprised when she goes to our mailbox by a letter from the state Supreme Court or the Wisconsin Department of Justice, and she'll find out that Dan has appealed to the next level, and he's still not, it's a re-triggering and a re-traumatization, and just a reminder. It's another twist of the knife in the wound that'll never heal. Just when the wound was feeling a little better, another surprise and a shock, and she'll be upset for months over this. So there can be continuing harm based on how the perpetrator continues to behave. So that's what restorative justice is about, and it's an amazing thing. And it's not about excusing anybody, and it's not about leniency, just so you guys and listeners don't think I'm living on a cloud somewhere and I'm crazy. I want everybody to know I will never excuse Dan for what he did to Jesse, ever.
Right.
I'll never excuse any human, including my own, any human on human violence, unless it's self-defense. I believe people have the right to defend themselves. But that's a completely different thing. Accountability, yes. Punishment, yes. Protect the public, yes. Forgiveness, love, yes. It doesn't mean I can't love him and forgive him.
Oh, that's true. He sounds to me like he's criminally, mentally ill. If he doesn't, come to grips with the accountability of what he's done.
There's something very broken somewhere. In Wisconsin, you can put in a dual plea. So he pled not guilty, and then he also pled not guilty by reason of mental defect, which sort of, to us, our first reaction was, what do you mean? You didn't do it, but if I did, I wasn't in my right mind? And so the court appointed a psychiatrist to evaluate him. The psychiatrist said he was not mentally ill. Then the defense got their own psychiatrist for a second opinion, who also said he's not mentally ill. So according to legal and judicial and clinical standards, he's fine. He's not mentally ill, but obviously there's something very wrong.
Yeah. How did Dan come to know Jesse?
They sat right next to each other for 4 years of high school, first and second chair violins in the orchestra.
Wow.
And they were also in all the forensics meets together and the state solo ensemble competitions and all the musicals and all the plays. And he usually got the starring role, and she usually got a good role too. They were in the same performing arts, theater arts circle in school. Good friends.
Wow. Unbelievable.
And obviously you knew him well, maybe not well enough. Yeah, he was in your home. He was a guest. Again, he was a part of your daughter's life for so many years. It's just shocking. I can't even put my arms around it.
Welcome in our home. Welcome in our home. And nobody saw this coming.
Of course not.
His parents, his fiancée, his lifelong best friend, nobody saw it coming.
Yeah.
And the day after he killed Jesse, he was in our home. Before anybody knew it was him, he came over to our vigil, spent hours with us, hugging, sharing memories, just like everyone else. Jesse's friends saved my life that first night when they all showed up at our house and filled our house for the whole week until the funeral. About 20 or 30 of them that first night, and Dan was one of them.
Wow.
Man, I tell you, Doctor, you are
hard to understand, isn't it?
Yeah,
About.
That's what I'm saying. I think there's a major short circuit in this kid's brain. But let me ask you another question. And I don't mean to diminish the work that you've done in the prison system, but something just struck me. Like, do you do a lot of work with the pedophiles and people that are in that realm?
Well, only really in prisons. I'm also in schools, churches, community groups, whoever invites me to speak.
Right.
Conferences especially is But I'm in prisons more than anything else lately, and in the prisons, I always get the demographics of the population I'm speaking to, and it's pretty similar in most prisons. A lot of DV, domestic violence, and a lot of SO, a lot of sex offender, and a lot of drug and alcohol.
Right.
Well, so yes, I do speak to sex offenders. We don't have a program yet that directly works with sex offenders. There's others who do that, and they do it better than we ever will.
Okay.
Really, our message and our mission is culture transformation. But there are groups. We have one in the Milwaukee area that does a batterers treatment program, and they're incredible. They have a high level of effectiveness and non-recidivism, non-repeat rate after going through their program.
Oh, that's awesome.
Doctor, could I ask you another question? Out of all these people that you see and speak to through your, going through all these prisons, and either pedophiles or rapists or whatever, is it almost like one common thread that jumps out at you that seems to be dominant in most, if not all, of these particular people?
No. First of all, I should say I'm not an expert at anything except chiropractic. I'm a chiropractor. I'm just a dad who wants to do something.
Yeah, sure.
Dad who lost his daughter, doesn't have other kids. Jess was our only.
Oh, God.
So all my parental love goes into her legacy projects now. It's my connection to her. It's I feel the need to do something to make her life and her death count for something good and useful and beautiful to whatever degree I can. So I'm not like a psychologist or psychiatrist. I'm on a big learning curve. I've learned a lot. I wouldn't say that. I would say that violence is a complexity of issues. There's so many complexities to it, and we don't have an answer. We've solved slavery in the United States, apartheid in South Africa, feudal kingdoms and dictatorships to democracies all over the world, the women's right to vote, the suffrage movement in the United States. There's been all kinds of social justice movements through history. Some have succeeded, some have failed. To me, this is like the biggest and most impossible one. This is just so in us. It's so in us. You guys, if Jessie was 1 in a million, I wouldn't be on your show today. But she's 1 out of 3. For sexual assault, our girls and women in my country, in your country, our girls and women, 1 out of 3 will experience some form of sexual violence in their lifetime. 1 out of 4 domestic violence. And the numbers aren't that different for boys.
Right.
1 out of 6 boys, sexual violence. 1 out of 7 boys, domestic violence. 10 more Jessies every day. 10 women killed by men every day in the United States. So it's everywhere. It's like staggering, and that just tells me. I'm also a biologist and a kind of a doctor. That just tells me this is in us. And to get to it and solve this, it's not going to be one guy in a project in 5 years. This is going to be the greatest accomplishment in human history, in my opinion, if and when we get this one done. But because we haven't yet, doesn't mean we can't and won't.
And
we've made massive improvements culturally in my lifetime.
Right, and you feel that it's done through education and just changing the paradigm then?
I do. I think awareness, there's an old saying, 90% of mastery is awareness. I think it all starts there. But awareness alone, I'm acutely aware that a one-and-done presentation isn't likely to change lifetime behavior in the vast majority of people. Although I also have already seen evidence of massive life change in a few people from a powerful personal story. So we not only need powerful personal stories to create engagement and interest, but then we need follow-up programs and systems. And we need them in the complexity of areas. It's not just education. It's probably also, the zip code you're born in, and all kinds of resources, like financial resources and poverty and transportation. People in South Side Chicago sometimes are stuck in their community and can't get out if they don't have a car. There's no public transport system, and on and on. So gigantic problem, could easily not even try because it's so big and intimidating, but what else do I have to do?
But there you are, swinging away.
Somebody's got to. If the dad of a murdered girl can't get motivated to do something about this, then who can? And I'm asking everybody to. We can all do something.
Well, Doctor, I tell you, could you just, what year did this happen? If you don't mind, I'm just...
2013. It was July 15th, 2013. It was 6 years, 7 months, and somewhere around 20 days ago now.
Wow. Just
how do you support your cause? Is there anything that we can do? I know. Go ahead and give your website out, please, and a phone number that you could, if you have some type of Fund Me Now or whatever. Whatever it may be, we're willing to help you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Thanks for having Jessie. I don't have her anymore. I just have her story and her mission. And when people like you give her a platform, Jess not only lost her life, she lost her voice. And so that's what I am now.
Right.
So our website is LIGTH. That stands for Love is Greater Than Hate. LIGTH.org. And if people are of a mind to donate, they can do so on our homepage. There's a donate button at the bottom. We have a Facebook page, too. And if I went to bed tonight and there was a few hundred more Facebook followers on our page because of this, that would be most exciting to me. We have about almost 8,000 Facebook followers now, which is pretty good. And it's just the Love is Greater Than Hate project with a greater than symbol on Facebook. Those are our two main media to communicate with us. We don't have a phone number.
Okay.
This was never about making money. It was just about telling a story and trying to bring change. But
right.
We started to realize that, the more we have, the more we can do. So we have a radio campaign now. We have a social media campaign now. We have a print media campaign, which reached 40 million people last fall. First time we ever did it.
Yeah.
All those things cost money.
Right.
And so if people want to donate, that's fantastic. We appreciate it.
Well, what we'll do for you, no questions asked, either is I'll snag your logo off your website and embed the link in it, and it'll have a place on our webpage.
Wow. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you from Jessie and victim survivors everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. We loved having this moment with you. I know you're a busy man. I don't want to keep you, but thank you, and God bless Jessie and your whole family. I think you're doing a great job. It's hard not to get wrapped up.
I appreciate it.
It's a pleasure talking with you.
It's too late for Jessie.
A pleasure talking to you, Doctor.
It's not too late for millions of victim survivors everywhere.
That's it. Well, keep up the good fight, my friend, and thank you for sharing the story.
Call in anytime you want.
And we really appreciate it. Thanks.